Hallo und herzlich willkommen bei Eins und beim Internationalen Filmfest Oldenburg. Wir sind heute ganz happy, dass wir einen sehr besonderen Moment hier sozusagen für die Ewigkeit erleben. Wir machen ein Livestream-Interview mit Oldenburg und LA und das Ganze machen wir auf Englisch aus gegebenem Anlass und deswegen fange ich jetzt an, Englisch zu sprechen. So, hello and welcome.
Hello.
This is a live stream interview for our first retrospective dedicated to two people, and it's a father-son retrospective. And first of all, welcome to the father in this retrospective, Peter Hyams in LA. Peter, really nice to see you. And your son is here in Oldenburg. John, welcome again. We
Thank you.
Very happy that you're here, and you know that, Peter. Your son is happy to represent you here and chatting about your films. He was kind of there when you did it, right? He was always there.
Oh yeah, he was born and raised Pakistan. There's a very long delay between me speaking and downtown.
We can hear you. It's not a delay here, but
It's not a delay, yeah, but it's
it's a little,
a little tricky.
yeah, a little bit.
When you talking.
Yeah, you're in
We
sync.
see you. It's all good, all good.
Yeah, it works here.
That's
Okay.
So it's a pleasure to meet you, Peter, and I'm with Oldenburg as well, the festival. And as Torsten was saying, John was on the set from a very young age, and you had this toddler, I won't say running around, you'll tell me if he was running around or not, or how that was all handled. Did you see that as kind of an educational process, or was that literally a practical consideration that I have a son that has to be somewhere, on a day-to-day basis? Like, how was that approached?
It's not an education process. It's the main thing we enjoy. He and his brother were there. There was a point in time where he began to think seriously about film. He has to see everything, and he was an art major and flourished, but also loved film. His brother made fabulous movies, and when he was young, then he the best. He was not just something that was fun. He was rip. One film, he was a storyboard artist. He was my host, dad, consultant, what we do, film in Louisiana. Was my film editor. With all due respect to John is the best film editor. This was a grown-up being a grown-up. Then had the extraordinary pleasure of working for him. I was a CP, and he was he was not only receptive, his idea was what he wanted to do. He's very visually oriented. This unbelievably remarkable sense of leader. And I mean, honestly, that's and working great ways of my life for all kinds of reasons. When I got to be with him, two, I got to see his process. Among other things, his process of making everybody feel comfortable, and they were joyful for working. He was a very strict boss. I don't know.
Well,
I think you walking back there, you just might have cut the...
you might have just lost him.
You lost the watch, or you lost.
Uh-oh.
I'm here. Hello. Yes.
Also die Sprachverständlichkeit war, also, you both speak the language, I couldn't understand a lot. It was really hard to get in.
It's just audio, though. I mean, I can understand, but the audio.
I could kind of understand it as well, but it was a bit difficult.
It's not great audio.
Yeah.
No.
Is there anything I can do?
I hope he understood that we had lost the signal and he wasn't talking.
He's not
on
still
too
talking.
long. Exactly.
He's still talking.
And then he stopped and he's watching us and like, are they going to ask me another question?
Oh, we got him back.
Okay.
We lost you there.
Welcome back.
All right. Well,
I think I was talking about film, and I said that John, one the best messenger I ever worked with, gave him an enormous, rare sense of timing, and also a genuinely extraordinary. And I said that the great choice of my life. This is Kameramann. If John is still wearing, he can give you how I felt. So working on as a team was two joys. One, I got to hang in. And he is the most best man I've ever in my life. He's gifted, really gifted, and runs into that's very joyful. To me, he was a gentle, extremely firm boss. What he wanted, somebody asked me why would I want to think somebody else and I said I spent probably 30 years of my life longing for the time chance to put a camera in a certain place, get that look that every director always got of without anybody asking, what the hell is doing over there? And I had the chance to say, who wants it here? So it was very liberating.
well, Dad, we're about to see Capricorn 1 tonight. So, can you talk at all about? That's enough about me, by the way. So, let's talk about you here. So no, but I'm really curious about, do you want to talk a little bit about when you made Capricorn 1, because you were, at that time, still in your 20s, you had done T.R. Baskin, you'd done Busting, I guess is what you had done, plus your kind of movies for TV. So coming off of Busting, what was the experience of, I mean, I guess obviously Busting was a big studio release, but was this a bigger film? It had to have been a little scope-wise bigger than Busting, and what was the experience of getting that made? And specifically, because I remember that time a little bit, I think the times are much different now, but back then in terms of how were you received as a director by the crew and everyone being a director of that age? I remember you even grew a mustache to look older, so there seemed to be an emphasis on trying to be older or appear older.
Exactly right. I'm very tired of being referred to kid. Capricorn One was a rather long and story. I've written this, which really came out of my experience as being a not very good journalist. And I wrote the script. The original reaction was not. This is interesting. If you change the response was, "Could you get your car out of the parking lot?" And it was university. It lay fallow for about plus years, and eventually producer came to me and said, "Never had a script you wrote?" And I said, "Well, absolutely nothing. Would you do it?" I said, "Yes." So I made a film. It was done. Warner Brothers and the company ITV. Warner Brothers did not have a lot of again, this is from about 1978, and I believe I owe a lot of my in the HR Harlem, but it certainly fed into the zeitgeist and the distrust of government. So I made the film, and again, it's probably because of the time. There is a moment in the film where the audience stood up and cheered. The same frame, too. He was on his brother. So I had the screening, and enormous. I had been in the shadows. The closest are waves and drops. I was in drops when I went. And Warner Brothers' reaction was, I remember the chairman of Warner Brothers said, I was head of marketing. Well, I'm which I don't and didn't. So my friend said, well, let's get it. So Ted Ashley said, Seattle. So we had a preview in Seattle. The same thing happened. The same friend got up here. The cards were incredible. My friend, this was the time of payphones. My friend got on the phone and said, "Tell Warner Brothers that I don't think Hyams has this many friends in Seattle." So then we previewed it another place in the same thing. And then by the time we previewed it in Los Angeles, again, this was when previews were secret. They say the movie. You didn't say this is a preview of Spider-Man. You said, quote, major studio preview tonight. And I remember walking to the theater at National in Westwood, expecting absolutely no one. And there were lines around the block. And I went in and spoke to the theater manager, who said that people had been calling up all day saying, "Capricorn One." How the hell they knew about it? There's no internet. I have no idea. So it had these enormous previews, and finally Warner Brothers said, "Let's preview it around the country, all around the country." And had this, and again, it's the same frame that people cheered, stood up and cheered. Even to the point where a friend of mine was on an airplane, came out of the men's room, and everybody was applauding, and the first thing he did was look at the fly. Um, and even then, I was in England making a film, and I got a call from this guy named Ferguson, who was the head of marketing. He said, "How does it feel to be the luckiest guy in England?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Dick Donner cannot deliver Superman for the summer. He was supposed to." I said, "So what does that mean?" He said, "You are the Warner Brothers summer movie. You're going to get all the bookings and all the advertising." And I said, "Well, what would have happened if Donner couldn't deliver?" And he said, "You would have opened in 2 theaters in Atlanta for 2 weeks and then closed." So it was by accident. It was just a series of flukes that the film became a hit.
So, just thinking about Capricorn One, and then I'm gonna go back to busting for a second because I've been asked sometimes the same question myself, which is, busting had a couple of memorable kind of action set pieces. There was the big supermarket kind of shootout, and then there's kind of the ambulance chase at the end, right?
Yes.
But then Capricorn One had, a much more memorable action set piece with the biplane helicopter chase. Was there, when you were going into Capricorn One, were you thinking, I want this to be, there's, what we know of as action movies today. Back then, if you think of French Connection, it's not really an action movie, but it has a very famous chase in it. Same, and Capricorn One is more of a thriller with a big action set piece. So when did you start? Were you coming out of busting being recognized as someone who could do action? Did you just like doing action? Like, how did that come about? Because of course, as you would continue on, you would be then recognized for your action, and I'm sure that was going to be part of the movies you made.
Well, when I made Capricorn One, I was very, very unwanted. About as obscure as you can get. When I didn't want to do an action movie. It was my sensibility. It was what I thought. I thought I wanted to make movies that were exciting, and I hopefully made a couple of movies that made you think a little bit. I mean, that weren't stupid. I think I made some that were probably stupid, except I tried to make ones that weren't. I just went into that film. I wrote the sequence, and then I spent quite a few months looking at every aerial sequence I'd ever seen, and went, how do I do this differently? I can get technical if you want. I mean, it's
Yeah, please do.
It's okay. George Roy Hill, who in my estimation, is one of the great directors that ever lived, did a big airplane movie with Robert Redford. Oh God, what was it?
Waldo Pepper.
The great Waldo Pepper.
That's right.
Yeah.
Great Waldo Pepper. And he did a whole bunch of elaborate aerial sequences, and I noticed how he did them. And he mounted cameras on the wing of the biplane. And I don't know why, just out of my own arrogance, I said, I don't think that works. You put a camera on the wing of the biplane and you spin the plane, you are keeping the audience still and you're spinning the background. I wanted to keep the background still in the audience. So we devised this absolutely cracked thing of essentially a little more complicated than that, essentially bolting a bridge chair, a metal bridge chair, on the side of a helicopter with a tile mount that you could turn And so the helicopter would be flying, and as the airplane turned, I would follow it with the Tyler mount. When the airplane banked, I would Tyler, and when the airplane dove, I would do that. My theory was it would make the audience experience the kind of uh, dizziness, the kind of vertigo that I wanted. People thought I was nuts. Um, there's a chase in there, not a chase. There's a sequence in there with Elliot Gould in the car, and there are no shots of the car until the thing goes over a bridge. Everybody thought I was nuts. I went, well, I'm sure I'm nuts, except I'd like to try to make a sequence where you experience what it's like to be in the car, not what it's like to see the car do all kinds of cartwheels.
Well, I think that,
really,
and I think, yeah, the point of it is that you were shooting action in a subjective way, and yes. That's what made it visceral. And another thing I feel like, because I learned so many lessons watching these action scenes. One thing that you did in the biplane chase, for instance, which created an incredible sense of speed, was having everyone be really low down have the planes be low to the ground. They weren't high up, so you see the ground whipping by, which I always took from that, action should always be staged close to things, and the camera should be as low in a car chase, as low as you can get it, so the road is whipping by. So, you want to talk about flying the planes low? I mean, that's what it seemed like was the reason to me. And also, there's that great moment where they go over the cliff.
When you're in a commercial airplane and you're flying at 35,000 feet, 500 miles an hour, and you look at the ground, it's passing very slowly. It doesn't look like you're going very fast. So my theory always was as close to and as claustrophobic as you could make the flying, have it close to rocks, have it close to the ground. It's also made when the ground disappeared, there's an audience reaction because there's a kind of thing in your stomach when all of a sudden the ground disappears. So the closer they came to rocks, the closer they came to the ground, the faster it appeared they go. I later became a helicopter pilot, and every time I would take someone to fly, and they'd say, "God, it doesn't seem like you're going very fast." I said, "Well, we're going about 135, 140 miles an hour." And they said, "Well, they don't feel it." So I would take them over the ocean and go 10 feet over the ocean, and they would start yelling and screaming, saying, "Okay, it's fast enough, go up." As soon as you went up, it didn't feel like you're going as fast.
But then,
I'm also a believer, and it may not be voguish. I'm a believer in and John, you certainly did it in Universal Soldier. That the camera and the cutting doesn't make the action that you do. You actually see the people. You actually see what the people are doing. And that's why I think your stuff is remarkable, because you see it. You see it.
Well, having geography, of course.
Yeah, and you've heard me say it a million times. This thing that came in the 80s or whatever the hell it was, of shaking cameras. I said there's a big difference between reality and Parkinson's. You don't sell the film director, you sell what's going on in front of the camera. Your films do that. Alone does that. The Universal Soldier does that. I think you're quite remarkable. I'm nothing like you. I'm sorry.
Yo, 1 second. Torsten has a question for you. What's your question?
I just want to throw this in. what is, I think, remarkable about both of you is like you combine this kind of filmmaking with something that we were doing the headline, like saying the Hollywood auteurs. It's like when I go back to Capricorn 1, the monologue of Hal Holbrook, why they are doing this, it's like amazing, and it's like we follow you in the story. This is what you were writing in an action movie, as we see, and like John is doing it in Day of Reckoning, putting a whole story in this characters. That is, I think, what we think is making you very unique, the two of you.
Well, I certainly, yes, his films were always, like he said, very, you know, that like Capricorn 1 and Outland, these are, and I'll let you continue on that, but like, you know, they're, as you say, there's smart writing in those. That great monologue by Hal Holbrook, that's a very gripping moment in that movie, and it's.
And it was the major moment to make us follow the whole story, to go there. I thought it was very remarkable.
I am a writer of speeches, so only certain kinds of actors can do them. Hal, I wrote 2 enormous speeches for in another film, one Capricorn 1 and another film, Star Chamber. And you know, Hal was brilliant. He was what a friend of mine used to call a word spitter. When I started, I was with the generation of young writer-directors when writing and directing was not that common. And then when I became a cinematographer, people just said, "Why do you wear so many hats?" And I always said, "Because I'm bald." It's because I see something, and I actually write from seeing. I actually see something and then write it. Great writers kind of hear things and then write it. I see it, and then it's because I was raised again as an art student, not nearly as good as John. However, as an art student, and then I was raised also as a photographer and apprenticed for a photographer. So I knew all those big words like sprockets, lens, and things like that. And I just wanted to photograph things that looked different from the movies that I saw. When you paint, you're responsible for the light. And normally when you paint, the light has a reason, it has an event. Every room, every bowl of fruit, there's an event to the light, and it affects the bowl of fruit. I think the same performance in full light is different than the very same performance in half light. The camera moving in, the camera moving to the left, the camera moving to the right, the camera being rock still. There are reasons for it. And if there are no reasons for it, then it's, it's bullshit.
Can I ask you a question about, because this is one that people ask me a lot about you, and I want to get your answer on it, which is about your journey as a cinematographer. Obviously, I know that you were, you imagined that your job was, to be as involved with the camera as anything else. But how did that evolve from busting to Capricorn 1? I know that at a certain point, by the time you were doing Outland, you imagined yourself as the cinematographer. Did you imagine it from minute one, or did it what was your relationship with these Bill Butlers and old school DPs that are on the set, and you're basically shooting it? How did that did that evolve, or was it right off the bat that's the way it was?
I think there's a bit of evolution. However, I was learning what Hollywood lighting was, and I was learning what I didn't like about Hollywood lighting, um, and it got more and more. And then when it came to Outland, I was the cinematographer. The union wouldn't let me in. It was almost a 10-year fight. It was actually an $11 million lawsuit against me and the producer on a film by the IA. So they don't like me, and they had to let me in. So 1983 they let me in.
May I ask why
They
that was?
still don't
Just
like
for
me.
the understanding, why did the union not want to let you in?
Um, I was the first. I'm the first director to ever be in the IA as a cinematographer. They're cameramen who became directors, some blissfully unsuccessful, and some were pretty good. Uh, Stanley Kubrick told me that he had the same fight, and the British Union would never let him in. Except, he made his own lenses. He knew more about photography than anybody he hired. And I always used to tell John, and still tell John, that if you fail on your own choices. The choices that you regret are the choices where you went, oh, I don't know, maybe it shouldn't be so dark here. And then so you add light, because everybody looks at you like you're the biggest schmuck in the world. And those are the dailies you hate. The dailies where you took a big swing and you went too far, you don't hate those dailies. You go, okay, I was an idiot, except it was my idiocy, and I took a big swing and I missed. The fail on your own choices, never fail on somebody else's choices. So I took chances. I did take chances out of bravery. I took chances because I saw something and I wanted to do it. The union fights and all that stuff. John knows about it. There in America, there is a thing called the ASC, the American Society of Cinematographers. It is a it is an honorary society that's not very exclusive. Anybody with any experience who makes Hollywood enough noticeable movies um, will be in the ASC. Two very very prominent cinematographers asked me to join the ASC, and I said, well, they hate me, and they said, if we sign your application, would you join? And I said, sure, I'd be honored. So they signed my application, and I went down for an interview, and 48 hours later, I got this letter that said, you've been rejected. And I asked my wife to frame it. I have it in the office. And the lady at the framing place said, are you sure you want to frame this? She said, yeah, he wants it framed. So I've had it ever since. There was a real antipathy, and it's just union crap. Now, Steven Soderbergh does his stuff, except he does his stuff with a different name. He uses the name Peter Andrews. Um, it's just it. You just
But
it's
how,
something.
the question is, how is it on the set though? Like here's just going back a bit. It's one thing dealing with the union, but how is it in those early movies dealing with the actual DP on set? Did you have a harmonious relationship with any of the first couple guys? Because
Bill Butler was terrific. I was a little more conservative on films like Capricorn One and Busting, and then I went, no, I'm just going to do it. So I would then hire people who had no experience, I had a guy who had done one episode of a television series called Knots Landing. And that's when the union came rushing down. That said, you can't do this. And I said, I can't do what? They said, you can't have a light meeting. You can't talk to the gaffer. You can't talk to the kid. I said, I can talk to anybody I want. It's my set. And the Directors Guild was thrilled. They went, let's take this to arbitration. Let's absolutely codify exactly what a director can do and what a director cannot do on set. The union sued and lost because they wouldn't go to arbitration. And then the next thing the guy said, well, actually, the next film was 2010, and I said to the union, I was perfectly happy to give somebody else the credit on my work. However, I'm not doing that anymore. You guys, made me crazy. So I'm taking this film to London. Why don't you tell that to all the other crafts? And while you're at it, why don't you tell the Teamster? And then the guy said, "Oh, you're in."
So it was a defensive move on their part to let you in the union, so that you didn't kind of set the precedent that the director could actually, in theory, talk to anyone they want on set, and actually has. It would establish that the director would have the power over the image if they wanted it.
Well, you did.
Well, I mean, everyone does to a degree, but I have a theory. I think I said this the other day. My theory is that you want to be a DP just because you like to talk to the grips and the electricians, on set. Like,
well, it's not out of loneliness. It's
I know, but you like that. You like collaborating with all those guys. Where it's like for us directors who aren't DPs, like, I'll talk to the grips about the baseball game, but I don't tell them where to put anything.
Yeah, so you like the more you're open to the technical aspects and the things that a lot of directors don't necessarily go towards. They go towards the creative and the acting and the.
Well, they like the DP delegate.
Yeah, exactly,
all that.
exactly.
I hope I haven't abandoned the creative aspect of the film that I've written and directed. Actors love working with me because, among other things, they know that I'm trying to make them look great. How do I? The analogy is, if I was making a film in Japan and I was fluent in Japanese, would it be easier for me to talk to an interpreter and then have them talk to people, or just talk to people in Japanese? So, photography is a language that I speak, a language that I have spoken, a language that I've continually tried to learn. So I see it, and I know what a 4K soft light is like. I know what tough frost and 216 and LC3s. I know what they do to film. Because I was 14 years old apprenticing for a very, very good portrait photographer. I learned how to break down and repair cameras. I spent a lot of time in dark rooms. It's just what I do. Just like saying, why don't you have somebody else write it? Well, if Aaron Sorkin wanted to write, I would say you can do it. However, when you have an idea and you write for a living, and you pay your rent by writing, you write. And then if when you make the film, you make the film that you see or the film that you hear. It depends on who you are. Again, John, you are without doubt the best film editor I have ever worked with. So when you make a film that is important to you, you are going to be in the cutting room, and you are going to make decisions, and you're going to make editorial decisions.
Oh, for sure.
cinematography.
But that's interestingly enough, I did find that was the last thing that I kind of hung on to was still editing my own things. And I actually eventually was able to let go of that. I felt like, and that was when I had an editor who I'd been working with for years. And I felt like he had now reached the point where it was better to have him do it rather than me. And it's kind of it's interesting. Like Soderbergh says a lot of the same things that you say, that there's an immediacy to it, that he can just, that he's operating, so he has just kind of a direct communication with the actor. So that's just your process. I've found that for me, with the editing, I did want to just have an editor just because I thought at a certain point, the best thing for me is to just have people in charge of those departments that have a complete idea, one that we've worked on in prep of what they're, of exactly what they're doing, and then I can, obviously influence it as much or little as I want. But I think there's a part of being, choosing to be a DP or choosing to be an editor or anything where you just enjoy the process of it, and that taking the process away of that makes it less fun, basically, right? Because you could get the image to look the way you wanted through a DP.
I don't think it's fun. I don't think it's more or less fun. I'm not sure a heroin addict thinks taking heroin is fun.
Well, all right, I would say challenging and stimulating in a good way. How's that?
That's nice. I'll buy that.
Well, I mean, you enjoy the challenge of you enjoy the challenge of work, and you like the process of working with a gaffer and an operator versus and the crew basically versus kind of having the DP, someone else be in charge of the crew, because that's kind of normally the dynamic for us non-DP directors. It's that the DP is kind of the king of the crew.
Well, the hell with that. I'm obsessive about making what I see and what I hear. The quickest way to get to it, and the best way to get to it, is for me to do it because I know how to do it. However, again, when I started up until 15, 20 years ago, cinematography was a great mystery. And fairly ungifted cinematographers were kind of Teutonic and stomping around a set and saying it's going to look great daily. Now it's digital, and now you see it. Now a cinematographer can't bullshit. So when I worked for you, you stood by the high-res monitor, and you went, "It's too dark over there." I went, "No, it looks great dark. It's too dark over there. Add some light over there." Right, go add some light. It's different. You can say you're laid back. You're not laid back. You just have the advantage because of the age in which you're working, where you see exactly what you got. And if you don't like it, you can change it any way you want to change it.
Absolutely.
It's different with film. So you have the control that film directors didn't have.
Yeah, I think a lot of DPs feel like the monitor, digital, like having the monitor there took a lot of the power away from them.
Absolutely, it took the mystery. And again, I'm a believer that there should be nothing mysterious about photography.
Yeah.
As there is nothing mysterious about painting. It's just that you look at things that are beautiful, and you go, "That painter's good." So, if Gordon Willis came to me and said, "I would like to shoot your movie," I'd go, "Absolutely." I'd tie my hands. You can literally put the cuffs on, and I'll be fine. I just don't think there are a lot of, Darius Kanji turns around to me and says, I want to shoot the film. I'm in. However, almost every film I see, I don't think it's that well photographed. And I'm not bad. Um, I'm better than some. Uh, in some cases, it's like being taller than a pygmy. You can still be quite short.
All right, how much time do we have left, Torsten?
Time for me to say something.
Okay.
It's like the European look on both of you. I have to say it's very interesting to hear, because we always discuss about the auteur theory. The director must be the writer, and I think all the European filmmakers who would follow this would not even bother to deal with all the departments. They would just think they go in and writing and directing is everything. And maybe it is part of the system, but I'm very fascinated with your both approach to working in a system that is all relying on departments and I don't know the word for it. My English is so bad, but it's not an achievement of one person making a film. It's like this achievement of a bigger group and one person bringing it together. And in that way, I think you both.
Yeah.
But you both are very.
I agree with that. And John can say whatever he wants. Somebody from the wardrobe department says, "What do you think of this jacket?" And John says, "Yes or no." Somebody from the scenic department says, "Do you want," or goes on a location scout, and John says, "I like that building." So, my theory is very simple. I love the people who make movies. I adore them. I cherish actors. I cherish improvisation. I want to be the dumbest person on my film, not the smartest person on my film. The saddest days I ever have in the process of making a film are the days that I stagger home or stagger back to my hotel room having shot what I expected. I want to be surprised. I love an operator saying, "This shot sucks. You should do this." I love a gaffer saying, "No, you got this light's not good. I have this new thing you should see." I love makeup people doing that. I love everybody doing that. I like to create a space where people feel very, very brave. I certainly do with actors, and I certainly do with everybody on the crew. I am not. I have a fixed idea. I mean, a crew doesn't like when you don't have an idea. Crew doesn't like when you sit there and kind of scratch your bald head and go, "Well, I don't know what to do here." They don't like that.
Yeah, and I'm not even suggesting that it's like a democratic system. It's not. It's a dictatorship, but it's in a good one, it's a benevolent dictatorship. And the departments as they work is not really. I don't see it as taking any control away from the director. It's more creating an efficient system, and also as my dad is saying, you're hiring people who are amazing at these different things. So, your wardrobe, your costume designer hopefully knows way more about clothing and costumes than I do. I can apply my taste to what, all the decisions, and that's what a director does, So a director can still always has complete control over what they're putting out there and how they're putting it together and every last sound that occurs. But I just think it's what kind of environment, what is the kind of environment that you're creating with your collaborators? Are there are some directors who draw storyboards and don't deviate from the storyboards, and they are very rigid. And some do it to great results, like Wes Anderson, right? Like Wes Anderson, I have a feeling they're creating a very rigid aesthetic that people say the dialogue a certain way, and they're not really improvising, and they're great. But then there's Robert Altman, who creates a very loose environment, but it feels like a Robert Altman movie because that's, so I think that the whole question of auteur or not auteur, that maybe has more to do with people afterwards looking at your work and seeing, do I see a voice coming from this director, or are they just kind of, are they just kind of like slapping, is there no voice present? So, but how you arrive at that, everyone's got a different way of doing it. Some with a very loud voice, some with a quiet, gentle voice.
But even there, I would say just quickly that like somebody like Wes Anderson you just mentioned, even in the idea that he's controlling the performances and having them say a specific cadence or a specific way of speaking, you have to find the right actors to be able to translate that for you, because not every actor is going to be good at that, right?
Absolutely, and he's clearly like found his troupe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when you cast an actor, you cast an actor for three reasons. One, they're good. Two, they somehow or other look like your preconception of what that character is like. And three, they're capable of surprise. And they're strong-willed. I just don't think a camera is a recording device any more than John thinks an easel and a palette and a canvas is a recording device. They are how you see it. They are how you hear it. And when you can't do that, when you are done making a film and you look at it, A, you only see what's wrong with it, and B, the only satisfaction you get is that close to the film I started to make? Is that when I was sat down with my little keyboard and my computer, is that what I wrote? Is that the film that I imagined? If the film is different than the one you imagined, it's not as satisfying. If it is like the one you imagined, then you hope it succeeds, except if it fails on your choice.
Do you both have films that you like more than others? Like favorite films among your own films?
I'm sure you won't answer that one, right? Let's see. Do I have favorite ones?
Of each other, maybe then.
Yeah, I certainly have favorite ones of my own too, but of each other, sure. I have favorite ones of his. I think, the three that we showed here, I picked for those reasons. There are other ones that are my favorites too, but Capricorn 1, Outland, and then Narrow Margin, each one was like, I feel like my film education was those three movies, amongst many other things, but Capricorn 1 being the first set I have real memories of, and watching, starting to actually understand the process, spending time in the makeup trailer with Michael Westmore, watching them film, these, how they were actually doing these stunts and that biplane chase. Actually watching him get into this chair and take off with a helicopter, follow these planes and fly away. So Capricorn 1 was seminal for me. Outland, again, a little bit older. I'm around 10 years old. I was there every day on set. It was everything I ever wanted in a movie. It was at that time, and even watching it last night, it still is everything I want in a movie. It's like, that's the movie I'm sort of chasing forever, just because of the genre, the subject matter, the kind of hard R-rated, big science fiction, with Western themes, world building, everything that goes on in that, this vision of this kind of rough and tumble future. It was, so that was, seared in my brain. And then Narrow Margin, where I actually got to be, part of the grip crew. So I was really close to where the camera was. I was actually physically taking part in setting up the rigs where the camera was going to be mounted. And so I'd spent many years observing him from behind, the chairs, and Narrow Margin was the first time where I could actually be really in there, as close to the action and as close to what was happening, and seeing, so literally seeing how that thing was put together like bolt by bolt. So those three make a huge mark on me.
What about your own films?
My own films, and I'm gonna speak for my dad because he's not gonna even like this question, but I think I speak for him, and I'll speak for myself, that I think that Day of Reckoning and then Alone I think Alone is probably, in my opinion, my best movie. And it's not my most elaborate movie, but I think it's where I think I had matured a lot as a storyteller by the time I did that. And it wasn't a movie that relied on choreography, and it didn't rely on like ultra violence, and it didn't rely on like kind of heavy, atmosphere. It really relied on the performers, and there was just two of them, and a third one for a little bit, and it was so much just about these performers, and I think I've learned that. It took a long time for me to realize that a movie is basically about the actors in the performers first and foremost, and having an okay performer is going to sink the movie. They've got to be the perfect person for it, or you have no chance. And so I think I was learning that before that, but I think that's where from my work, that's where it came together the best. But that's just my opinion.
And you're going to speak for your dad?
I think Alone is his favorite of mine too.
Okay.
Well, to be honest, it's the last movie of yours I've seen, so of course it's my favorite.
That's true. But I still don't think it's your favorite?
It's the last one I saw. I thought it was dazzling. I mean, I haven't seen it. Your latest film, you never showed it to me. Son of a bitch.
All right, he's not going to give you a real opinion.
No, I'll give you my answer. My answer is it's got nothing to do with what's favorite. It's got to do with the most tired trope that I've given John his whole life about film directing. And I know he's going to nod off as I start. When you hear somebody sing a song and they go through all these incredible vocal gymnastics and they get done and you go, my God, that woman's a great singer. And then you hear somebody else sing a song and you go, God, that was a pretty song. That's what film directing is to me. You don't sell the singer, you sell the song. So I believe that the actors are actually the ones who tell the story to the audience, and the film director is somebody who actually somehow or other creates a place where that story is told. There's clean storytelling and there's messy storytelling, where directors who call attention to themselves, and they're directors who call attention. And sometimes it works. When it's Wes Anderson, it's brilliant. When it's half the people around, it's junk to me. And then there are people who are lean storytellers. I said, George Roy Hill to me, Alfonso Cuarón. I mean, these are the Steven Spielberg. These are great film directors. And when you get done with seeing that movie, you either say it was a phenomenal story, a phenomenal time in the movie theater, or it wasn't. John is a storyteller, and that's what I love most about his film. So Alone is a perfect example of a simple story to tell and a very easy story to screw up. Because I remember my comment when I saw the film. I said, you have made the film that everybody has tried to make. and you've made it wonderful. It's very easy to make. I don't mean the process is easy. I'm saying make a Capricorn One, and it is a unique story. It is a unique kind of film for its time. So it's tougher to judge that. When somebody, if somebody makes veal cordon bleu, it's hard to tell great veal cordon bleu from not great veal cordon bleu unless you're a gourmet. Somebody makes pizza, now you can judge. Uh, and I've basically spent my life in the pizza business, and if it's a success, I mean, in terms of being a good film, then I'm proud. And what I love about Alone is that Alone is a film that everybody has tried to make in one form or another, and I think John did it better.
Well, thanks.
Beautiful. It's very beautiful. So
It's
we're
true.
actually aiming to go through all your both careers, talk about every film. Without doing it, I think we kind of got into the core of Hyams filmmaking.
That's right. We got to the we covered it in the general, which is the way to go.
Yes. So thank you very much, both of you.
All right. Thank
Peter,
you.
we are going to the cinema now and introduce Capricorn One.
Yes.
Thank you, Peter.
And,
Thanks, Dad.
It's
I
great
love you.
to honor
Love
you.
you,
And
John.
tomorrow, guys, I have to say that. Will you be able to join in tomorrow morning when your son will take the award for you, and we will do a little honorary show.
Same thing. You mean can I do a Zoom meet kind of thing?
Yes, no, you just get a link and can watch it.
Oh, you can watch it.
We talk to you without.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
would love to.
So he can give thumbs up every
Yeah.
like things like that.
We'll wave to the camera.
We wave to the camera.
If John's talking about me, it's going to be tough. So
So thank you very
All
much
right.
for
Thank
this
you.
chat.
Thank you.
What a pleasure.
leave you with the one thing is that, and John's heard me say it, he has all the talent I wish I had. God knows how far he's come.
He's a humble
Oh, it's
man,
good.
as you guys have learned.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
we keep enjoying the
Yeah.
films in the next days.
Yes, we will.
And thank you
Word out of
very
your
much.
skin.
All right.
All right. Take
Okay.
care. Bye-bye.
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 Bye.